Uncle Dan,
Hey,
this is a strange trip we find ourselves on.
by that do you mean this life?
This mortal coil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a bizarre little thing we do.
Yep. From birth to death, we're all going in one direction. And it's
I started at death.
Do you think that's why the band is called that, One Direction? It's this kind of existential boy band.
I would listen to them if I don't
Yeah.
listen to them.
It's One Direction,
you don't.
named after Camus and his.
I was going to say Doug has season tickets, but I don't think that's how boy bands work. But
It should be. It should be.
Well, Uncle Mark, you want to talk to us a little bit about that journey.
yeah, so this is a little bit of a how-to, and those of us, probably almost every single person that's listening to this now is someplace along a certain journey. So let me paint a picture, and then we're going to get into a little bit of a conversation. So there you were, minding your own business on your own road to Damascus. Saul's come up a couple times in this show, when something happened, an inciting incident, a catalyzing event, maybe a flash, maybe just a whisper, and your world shifted, or maybe just began to shift. Maybe you saw the real behavior of your local holy man and you were rattled. Maybe, like so many people, you actually read your holy book without blinders and carefully curated apologetic study guides and found them wanting at least and morally inexcusable and false at worst. If, like the vast majority of people, you were carried along by inertia and habit of practicing the faith you were statistically 80% or more likely to have been born into, something happened that made you see the tide you'd always been carried in from a remove, and it suddenly looked different. Suddenly, it felt strange. Maybe a wife or a husband or even a child that you saw as a comrade or a partner in your particular take on eternity pulled away, tearing a hole in your being and betraying who you thought you were and who you thought they were, leaving your lonely mind at night unable to explain away the doubts they expressed, unable to ignore the pain and confusion that drove them to that place, the tiny mustard seed of doubt sprouting in the crevices of your mind, no matter how hard you tried to deny it the sunlight of reason. Maybe you peeked beyond the approved canon in history and found your mortal instruments of God, your Mohammed, your Joseph Smith, your parish priest to be broken, flawed, grandstanding fabulists and liars whose pious grandiosity was cover for base, sexually predatory proclivities, and it was like somebody killed a part of you. Maybe it wasn't any one thing, but maybe a million little things, 1,000 nagging doubts, as our Mormon friends say, you tossed up on the shelf and tried to ignore, until one day a loud groan led to a clattering crash, and the whole mess collapsed around you. What you thought was your fortress of faith was a house of cards made out of the lies that others told you, and worse yet, the ones you told yourself. Or maybe, if you're listening to this podcast in secret somewhere, you're just beginning to see the cracks, to hear the whispers of doubt bubbling up from the depths of your being, and you're terrified of what that could mean and what your future looks like. But for those reasons or countless others I didn't list, if your shelf broke, your shelf broke. The glorious sunrise on the eastern horizon where you were told your eternity lies is just a badly painted backdrop. And now, whether you wanted it or not, you've lost family, community, an eternal plan, and the answers to life, the universe, and everything. Maybe you're one of the very lucky few who escaped unscathed, intact and without major losses, but statistically you're a rarity, so congrats on that. But more likely the damage sustained in leaving your faith is substantial. It can be as bad or worse than the death of a loved one. It can be the death of a significant part of oneself. And I want to quote our friend Dr. Marlene Winnell, who was on the show a few months back, who coined the term religious trauma syndrome, or RTS. Much of her work focuses on the trauma of being in religion and the harm indoctrination causes. But here specifically, she's talking about the very real trauma that can occur when, for whatever reason, a person finds they must leave it. Quoting Dr. Winnell, losing one's religion is a special and potentially extreme case. A shattered belief system can be devastating and cause cognitive and affective problems, including an acute sense of betrayal. Many ex-believers have anger about the abuse of growing up in a world of lies. They feel robbed of a normal childhood, honest information, and opportunity to develop and thrive. They have bitterness for being taught they were worthless and in need of salvation, yet never able to be sure they were good enough to make it. They have anger about the terrors of hell, the rapture, demons, apostasy, unforgivable sins, and the evil of the world. They resent not being able to ever feel good or safe. Many are angry that the same teachings are inflicted on more children continuously. They have rage because they dedicated their lives and gave up everything to serve God. They are angry about losing their families and friends. They feel enormously betrayed. And this is from a series of 3 articles that I quoted. I'll include them in the show notes. So why do I bring this all up?
It's because you don't want us to have any surviving members of our listening audience.
It's because I, and I'm sure we 3, want to acknowledge that loss, pain, anger, depression, confusion, despair, and loneliness of these journeys. At the same time, we want to acknowledge the courage, the honesty, the integrity, and truly the love required to step off the edge of the known into the unknown. I want us to give a 3-way avuncular hug to you wherever you are on this earth and wherever you are on your own road to Damascus. We 3 have had our own very different journeys, despite the incredible similarities of our origins. 2 of us being born into the same house, and we can talk about that in a bit. Our roads led us 3 to atheism, but yours may not, and that's okay. Or maybe it hasn't just yet, and that's okay too. Maybe your deep, powerful love of Jesus has led you away from a hateful congregation that hates in his name to one that does its best not to. And that's okay too. I know we have listeners of various faiths. I read your emails, and we're glad you're here, though at times might be a bumpy ride for you guys. Uncle Doug told a great story a few months back where he engaged in friendly dialogue with some of the screamy, hateful evangelical Christians outside of Mormon General Conference. They asked him where he could possibly establish his morality if he didn't believe in God, and his answer was absolutely perfect. And Doug, you'll remember this, and you said harm reduction.
Right.
Doing the least harm for the most people. So even if your journey doesn't lead to our smugly godless corner, even if it leads you back into a kinder faith than the one that the fate of birth delivered you into, even if you have no fucking clue where to go or how to get there, but you want that place to be a saner, safer, happier world for you and people you'll never meet, then you and we are fellow travelers. In reducing harm to yourself and others via reason and dialogue and sanity, if that's the star that's leading you forward in your long, dark night, your journey just got a lot less lonely because, as you should know from listening to this show, you have 3 semi-asthmatic, middle-aged uncles walking along with you, which, while that sounds nice, is going to suck for you because we didn't bring a lot of water. So you're going to have to share your canteen, and we need to rest a lot. And we all snore.
Mark needs to pee every 15
minutes. Oh, my God. I need to pee so much. And did I mention that? But, hey, there's 4 of us, but that's cool. So
yeah, and in contradiction of the old story, when you look back behind you, but behind the 4 of us, there's actually 5 sets of footprints.
Yeah, super weird. Somebody's following us. So if no one had acknowledged the pain and the fear and the desolation you went through or that you're going through now, this is us acknowledging that. We've been there, and our message from the other side of the darkness is keep going. It's going to be so much better than you even dreamed. So guys, with all that being said, what would you have to say to our friends out there on their journeys? Maybe some at the beginning, some lost in the weeds in the middle, and maybe some just figuring out, where to begin entirely.
It's a big question you've posed. I think that you're right. That I don't know. Here's the thing. I've wrestled with this for a long time. I've had a lot of people write into my other podcast and into this podcast, asking for various advice. And the truth is, advice is hard to give because your individual journey is so different than everybody else's. But I think for me, one of the things that has really stood out as I've examined this idea of, what it's like to be on the outside of a religion and all that sort of thing is that attitude becomes everything. Having a good, positive view of yourself and of the world around you, the better you can do at that. And Doug, you talked about this to some extent when we talked about the Westboro Baptist. It's if you can have a generous and kind attitude toward all fellow humans, and you can also have that same generosity of spirit toward yourself, you're gonna make it good. You're gonna do great. There will be all kinds of bumps along the road. It'll be very, very difficult. People will hurt you, and will claim that you hurt them. There's all kinds of things that'll happen. And yet, if you come at it from a place of humor, where you can, and a place of kindness and generosity to yourself, to others, to those around you, you're gonna do okay.
Yeah. I think the trick is that's a great piece of advice, and I think that's huge to this journey is take it easy on yourself. Right? Don't take the horrible yardstick that you were taught to judge yourself and others by in religion and use it to commit hara-kiri.
Right.
You know, just take it easy. This is hard. You don't have the answers, right? And nobody really does, but you don't have many of them at this point. Give yourself time and take it easy.
And make some mistakes. It's okay. Like you can be wrong about things. That's the other thing, is go through life not knowing shit. Because a lot of people come out of religion and they feel like, oh my God, I suddenly know that something's wrong. You know, I wanted to proselytize my newfound non-Mormonism and tell everybody, like, no, it's wrong, you guys, you got to get out. That's not going to help you either. The truth is, you don't know jack shit. Look around. Explore the world. Figure out what it means to you.
There's that, you know, when as an adult, when a teenager comes to you after their first breakup and their world has been shattered, right? Like nothing will ever be good again.
Right.
Everything's over. Love is gone from my life. And you there's not much you can say to that kid except it's going to be okay.
Right.
Because you know what his experience is, but you also know how totally myopic that teenager's being.
Right.
And a lot of these decisions that people make around leaving religion or making these, you know, being true to yourself as far as your belief system is concerned seem so consequential that they're debilitating, they're terrifying, and they can cause so much anxiety. You know, I think one of the messages of this podcast is it's not such a big deal, right? It's less of a deal than it seems, and you're going to get through it. You're
Well, I would
okay.
say that you know, not to belittle that heartbroken teenager's experience, because that is devastating and that's real, right? So I would say, you know, for people coming out of religion most of the time teaches you not to actually to use your emotions in full color, right? You're just to tamp down everything that's human about yourself. So give that up for fucking Lent when you leave religion, right? If you're angry, be angry. Don't let anybody tell you not to be. If you're hurt, be hurt. If you're in pain, be in pain. You've got to go through this process. You're grieving, right? You're going to have to go through the process of, as Dr. Winnell said in that quote, of betrayal and anger and why the fuck didn't the people in my life do their research and prevent this from happening to me? You know, don't pretend none of those feelings aren't real, because they are. And it's okay to experience them and work your way through them.
The other thing I would say is that we have a different perspective because as you know, in this little middling niche podcast that we are, we get people who write into us with their painful stories and we read them all. And there's differences in the journey, but the pain is all very similar. You know, it's a painful process and it can be very lonely. And we read all of those emails. So we can say with authority, you out there who are in those places, you are not alone.
Yeah.
You just don't know the other people around you that are going through it, but trust me, they're there.
Well, and that brings me to this point, Doug. Sorry to jump on you there, but something that's really, really important that maybe, especially a lot of young people might not quite understand, is you now live in the best time in the history of the world to take this journey. You have access to more information and help than any generation before you. Even the generation this voice belongs to. I grew up, you know, I was going through all this way pre-internet, way pre, you know, I didn't know a single atheist in my life.
Yeah.
And so there is an embarrassment of riches available to you now. Not all of them are good,
Right.
Not all of them are bad. That's the price of freedom, is you kind of have to fucking figure it out, right?
Right. And you need to sort through what you hear and what you see out there. You know, you listen to us, you listen to, scathing atheists, and they're madder, but they're also funny. Or you listen to somebody who's more serious and, takes it all, is all about just making good arguments, and you find what works for you.
Yeah.
None of this is about a correct path. That's the one thing that you can be guaranteed of once you leave religion, is that you can let go of the notion that there's a right way and a wrong way to do this life. There isn't.
There's
no
two
such
alike.
thing.
There aren't even two alike.
Right.
The three of us who grew up, Doug and I grew up in the same house. Dan, you lived 3 blocks from us or something like that.
Yeah, half a mile.
Our journeys are completely different.
Yep.
Even though Doug is practically my twin. That's how different all of these approaches are. And so religion is the false promise that there is one way. Well, you've given that up, right? Mm-hmm. When you walked out the church door, you gave up the possibility of a single way to whatever, a single way to the truth, to enlightenment. There isn't one. And
there's not even one way to live your life, let alone one way to live all of the lives.
Yeah.
Try a bunch of ways of living.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Get out there and just try some shit.
Mm-hmm. And not to strain the metaphor of that broken-hearted child or teenager, but there's no language you can say to that kid at that time, right? That's going to make it better for him or her. All you can say is it's going to get better. You're just going to have to go through this. It's going to suck for you for a while, but you'll be better for it. You'll be stronger. You'll be a more complete person. It just sucks right now.
Right.
It gets better.
Sorry, Dan, go ahead.
I was just going to say a lot of this is just sort of, these are steps on the road to becoming confident and comfortable with who you are.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the ultimate key to all of this, is that if you can find a way to respect you, to make to craft yourself into a person that you love, that you respect, that you can honor. And that may mean, cutting out toxic people from your life that you love, or it may mean taking steps that you're scared to take, and it may mean like sitting through some very rough sadness.
But scars mean wisdom.
Once you get and do it skillfully.
Yeah.
Get a therapist if it'll help you, and it certainly helped me dramatically. Get any help that you can. Find a guru that you like and sit with them until they stop making sense, and then leave. It's always fine for you to be good at something or enjoy something and then not.
Right.
Yeah. And it's all in service of honoring yourself. And once you do that, it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst not then be bad to any man.
So there's a great quote, and Dan has this great point about it's got to start with you. It's got to start about learning, and you've probably been taught not to do this, learning to love and respect yourself pretty profoundly. And there's a great quote. Chrissy Stroop, our friend Chrissy Stroop, just released her anthology, Empty the Pews, and I've got the book. It's wonderful stories, just exactly what we're talking about now, of people leaving religion for 100 different reasons. And there's a quote in the book that's so amazing that said, Christianity teaches us to love our neighbors like ourselves, and then it teaches us not to love ourselves very much. And
that's amazing.
That's such a bullseye, right?
Yeah.
And these control systems are made to work over you by making you despise yourself. And that's just if you're a cis white man in Christianity. Yeah. If you are anything else, if you're a woman, if you're a person of color, if you're queer, if you're disabled, boy, are you taught to hate yourself. Yeah. What did you do that God cursed you in this way? Right? So you've got to just vomit that shit up and forget loving Christ because he's just a story. Love the thing closest to you, which is you.
Yeah.
And everything else will be easier after that.
I love that image of vomiting up the shit that they implanted in you. Because the truth is that they have buried some landmines deep in your psyche.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
for the rest of your life, you're going to be wandering around and you're going to step on one and you're going to blow up for a second. And you just got to get good and resilient at understanding what that is and why it's there, and then just slowly cutting it away. You just got to
Doug,
get
does that
rid of
happen
it.
to you?
No,
Is
never.
there still
No.
Dan?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm totally fine.
the programming's still there? I haven't been religious for more than 30 years, and
Yeah.
they're still
Yeah.
that's never going to go away, right?
Well, what's fun about it, though, is that after a while, the first few times that you have to like extract some of this stuff from your brain, it hurts and it's terrifying, and it's so disorienting, and you don't know where you are. Eventually, though,
You exercise the muscle.
now, I'm 25 some odd, or no, probably almost 30 years out of religion myself, and it's like when I catch those things in myself, I get to go, oh, that's there. Wow, that's fucked up, and it's kind of fun. It's like this weird game where I'm playing with my psyche and with my training, just going, holy shit. How long have you been in there? What is going on?
Exactly. It's like finding an old snack in the couch. It's just as long as you have that couch, it's never going to go away. So
Yeah.
Well, I think love yourself, and if you can, once you do that, you can externalize it and love other people, and even as Doug says, look at these Fred Phelps Westboro Baptist Church motherfuckers with a certain level of compassion rather than the hate they want you to look at them with, and that's a pretty successful journey if you
That's
can
a win.
Yeah.
if you
Right
can
there.
do that. So we love you, and thanks for everybody who wrote in response to that tweet and the crazy stories and amazing stories, and every one of them was absolutely radically different than the other, which just goes to prove there's no one way. Yep.
Yeah.
Get out there and have some fun, you crazy snowflakes.
You
Be
only
alive.
get one life.
This is it.
You better make the most of it. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Let's move on.
Moving on.